You mentioned the MTBI, the MBTI,
Yeah.
Myers-Briggs type indicator, and that
Hmm.
is the really big one. So I'd love for you to describe like where it's used right now and why it's so important in our culture. But then I'd love for you to tell us how it was created because it is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Okay, so the Myers-Briggs type indicator comes from some students of Jung, and these were not trained psychologists, by the way, who basically just wanted to make something useful for their own use, and they came up with these four types based on looking around at their friends and people. So in other words, it's a good story. It's a really good story, and good stories tend to stick more than good data. I'm going to say.
Hmm.
So and it divides people into 16 types based on four continua. So you could be introverted or extroverted. That's the I or the E in the type. You can be intuitive or sensing. That's the N versus the S. You can be thinking versus feeling. So that's the T and the F. And then you can be judgment versus process, which is do you like to close things out or do you like to keep things going and make sure you're doing it right?
Right.
So people that yields like four letters. I'm an INT. I'm a P or a J. I don't know. I test both ways. But honestly, I've taken this in the context of work several times, and I test differently each time depending on what I think the company wants from me, which is another problem with personality tests. Right.
Right. And regardless,
Because
you're not a P or a J. You're either
I'm not
both
a
or
P or J.
neither.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
I'm not.
right.
Nor, I always test introvert, but I'm actually very extroverted. I love to talk, as you can see. But what,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
there, you
and
know what? For one thing, it's really funny how people. You mentioned those four letters.
yeah.
How attached to those letters people get. Like
Oh my
I
God.
I, I met a guy once, like super nice guy, but like I still see like Facebook stuff that like he's because I think he coaches entrepreneurs as well. He's always saying that like, oh, I like this thing. I'm in this city. It's a very INPJ thing to do,
Uh,
and like he's completely attached himself to those four letters. That like I get it. If it works for you, I think that's great. But I find it like very absurd.
it is absurd because that's one of the weird things about humans is that if you give us a label, we will like take that. I was last night doing
Right.
something with the Sierra Club here in Southern California, a very woo place. I just want to say that,
Right.
and I was remembering how when I was doing Sierra Club training, we were group 5. And so group 5 had a thing about group 6, right? And so it's like you can form groups over anything at all.
Oh
And
my
we were
God.
basically like everybody was pretty much in the same boat. There was no difference between group 5 and group 6, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
but people get very attached to these things and they're not really based on anything. The data, there's no data, like no data. I want to be really clear. No data that supports the idea that the Myers-Briggs test is predictive of behavior. Just because you test as an ENTJ doesn't mean that we can tell anything about how you will behave or because of that. And it doesn't even mean that you will test that way again. So if you're really into
Hmm.
your type, it might be aspirational for you. It might be like the type that you feel like you ought to be. And so that's what you're trying to be. And that's when you'll see the behavior that is consistent with that. And when you're not consistent with that, you'll either kind of ignore it or go, well, I didn't quite hit the mark that time.
Right. Well, I think that's why this idea of archetypes, personality tests
Mm-hmm.
kind of bug me because I think it really like it's not like we're animals living in the same forest all the time. So all of our, inputs are going to be the same. There's a tree, there's a predator, there's the
Yeah.
weather. Like we're human beings and there's
Much
so
more
many different
complicated.
environments that we live in and there's so many different ideas of status depending where you are. Like
Yeah.
if you're a, the best baseball player on a team, you might be the more dominant person on that team or have more status, but maybe you're also like a elementary school janitor during the day. So like
Absolutely.
it's not saying that like all of these things are just trying to, like you said, control for variables that people can't understand. Because I want to say a little bit more about how it was created, because you said it was two people that aren't psychologists, but not
Mm-hmm.
even that. It was like a mother-daughter duo,
Yeah. Yeah.
like two Christian women who were
Mm-hmm.
just, I
Yeah.
think, trying to figure out, and to their credit, like trying to figure out the world around them. And the mother was basically in love with the ideas of Carl Jung. And so she was basically just extrapolating from Carl Jung's ideas of archetypes into her very homogenous Christian community, and now this personality test is in so many Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Like why are humans this silly? Like I don't get it.